This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
We talk music and the mind. Musician, composer, and psychologist Dr. Michael DeMaria on this edition of Conversations. Most people are fortunate if they find success with one career, much less two. But Dr. Michael Brandt DeMaria has done just that. For more than 2 decades, he's had a successful psychology practice while at the same time building a secondary career as a composer and musician. His music has put 3 consecutive albums at #1 on the New Age charts. You can add to that 4 Grammy nominations and the fact that he was a contributor on a Grammy-winning children's album. And you see, his music resume is quite impressive. What's even more unique is how Dr. DeMaria has married psychology and music to form a holistic approach to enhancing one's life, a message he communicates through his speaking and writing. He's also the author of 3 books, including a book of poetry. We welcome Dr. Michael DeMaria to Conversations. You're a busy guy.
Yes, Jeff. I stay pretty busy, and thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's absolutely my pleasure. First of all, congratulations, another Grammy nomination. And also, you were a contributor to an album, a children's album, which actually won a Grammy.
Yes, Jeff, just this last week.
Yep, congratulations.
Yes.
Tell me
so
about
much.
the children's album.
Well, the children's album, Jeff, is named All About Bullies, Big and Small. And it's a really wonderful project. I actually met the producers at last year's Grammys, and they were kind enough to, when they found out I was a psychologist and also a poet as well as a musician, they said, we would love to have you contribute to this album. And I had shared with them that I actually was a child protection team psychologist here in Escambia and Santa Rosa County for many years too. So number one, I'm an advocate of children.
Right.
Number two, I was a victim of bullying myself growing up at different times. So I really jumped at the chance to be part of this process and program. And I actually wrote a series of poems about bullying with a real positive message. And what was really cool was they actually had children read my poetry over a track of my original music.
Okay.
And so the response has been great, and to actually be there at the Grammys this last week and see it actually win a Grammy was a highlight for me.
If you were going to describe your music to someone who had never heard it, how would you describe it?
That's a great question, Jeff. A phrase that often comes to my mind is sonic journeys for the soul.
Okay.
And, my music has always been about healing. And I like to share the story often when I try to describe my music, that it goes back to the time when I was 6, 7 years old, recuperating from some surgery as a child. And my parents had a big piano in the living room. And I'd just go to the piano and just close my eyes and hit one note at a time. And I remember really loving to hear that one note just kind of arise and then slowly dissipate off into silence. And ever since then, I realized that music, looking back on it as a psychologist, was a form of self-soothing for me. And I was almost in some way putting myself in a trance. My parents just thought I was autistic. But I really, really found that using music in almost a meditative way. So a lot of my music is about healing, really trying to create a sense of relaxation for the listener. My main goal is to try to quiet the mind and open the heart.
Why does music evoke so many emotions in us?
That's a great question, a perennial question, and something I think about a lot and have researched cross-culturally. I'm kind of an amateur ethnomusicologist,
Okay.
And I have these instruments from all over the world, and a lot of my music is about this world fusion. Because we find throughout the world that many indigenous people see music as the language of the soul. Mm-hmm. And what I think they're trying to say in that is it crosses cultural barriers and cultural boundaries. And also, if you think about it, you can't hide from music.
Right.
If there's a painting, you can choose not to look at it. But when there's music playing, it's coming into your ears, coming into your body, coming into your heart, and it kind of penetrates through a lot of our logical, rational ego defenses.
Right.
when someone's talking to us, we can kind of filter out what they're saying or categorize it. But music has a way of just acting right on our heart at a very intimate, deep level. There's also indigenous people who believe that music is the doorway between the worlds, that it's a way in which we touch those deeper spiritual truths. And I actually have a little story about that. I've played my flutes at times for hospice patients.
Right.
And I played it one time for a woman who, late 30s, very tragically, who was dying of cancer. She was also a surfer. She
Wow.
loved to surf, and it was tragic seeing her go through this. And the first time I came to play for her, she was in a coma. And so the nurses said, go ahead and play. We don't know if she's going to come out or not. So I played, and when she came out, she said, I had a dream that there was a Native American person coming and playing the flute for me. And they said, that wasn't a dream. The person was actually here. So they asked me to come back. She said, can he come back? So I did. So when I came back, I was playing a song. I always improvise when I play in this way. And she said, after I played, she said, what song is that? I said, I don't know. It must be your song, because I've never played it before. And she said, it's the strangest thing, because it gives me such comfort and makes me think about the wave I rode in on. And it gives me courage to ride the wave back out.
Wow.
And from that moment on, I really realized that some of my indigenous teachers who talked about music being a gateway between this world and the other world, maybe they were right.
Now you're on to something.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been playing flute?
About 20 years. 20 years ago, I was going through a very difficult time. I was working with the child protection team and had been involved with a very severe, difficult place in case where a child actually was murdered. And as part of my own healing, I found myself on a Native American reservation up in Canada. And it was the first time I heard the Native American flute, and it literally just brought tears to my eyes. And when I got back, I said, I need to find a flute, because that sound is something I need to be able to express the feelings I have inside. So I've been playing ever since.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What else do you play?
Well, I grew up playing piano and percussion.
Okay.
I saw my first live jazz performance. I was about 9 years old, and we were at the high school in Connecticut where I grew up initially. And I saw this jazz drummer on stage, and he was just like his, hands were going every which way. And I told my parents when I got back, I said, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to be a drummer. They were horrified. We were a quiet Catholic family, but they said, well, if you keep practicing on your practice pad, a little piece of wood with some plastic on it, we get you a real set of drums. So I played drums growing up. I played piano. I got my first Moog synthesizer when I was 18. I loved synthesizers and keyboards. And I used to create a lot of relaxation tapes for clients early on in my practice. It was really a justification for me buying a bunch of instruments and justifying it to my wife. But then I really got into the flute about 20 years ago, and what often is called indigenous aerophones, which are instruments where you make music with your breath. So I've studied the Australian didgeridoo. I play Australian didgeridoo. I play shakuhachi, Japanese indigenous flute, a little bansuri from India, which is another kind of flute. So I really am a multi-instrumentalist, and anything I can get my hands on, I usually try to play.
But the flute's the passion. That's the passion.
That's how I've kind of gotten known, and nothing gives me more joy. It's as if when I'm playing a flute and making music with the breath, I close my eyes, and it's the closest thing to flying, Jeff, I've experienced in this lifetime.
Yeah, interesting. How did you get into psychology? If you had as a young person, you were into music, why psychology?
Well, it's a little bit of a funny story, and I hope my dad, if he's listening, doesn't, when he ever hears this. I wanted to be a music major. I actually wanted to study ethnomusicology and music, and so I told my father, who was born in Italy, moved here when he was 21 after the war, and I said, Dad, I want to be a musician. And he goes, what are you talking about? You're a first generation son of an immigrant. You need to be a doctor or a lawyer. Your kids can be artists and musicians. He was a hardcore PhD chemical engineer. And so I was a dutiful son who believed him. And so I started thinking, well, what kind of doctor can I be and still play music and paint and do art and theater and things like that? And I came across the whole area of music therapy, art therapy, play therapy, and I said, wow, here I could be a doctor, but I could also, be creative and explore music and these other areas. So I started taking psychology classes and really fell in love with it. And I've always been fascinated with human emotions, dreams, the human mind. Yeah. And so I've loved my work in psychology, and it really has worked out well. And I'd say, the other thing that's interesting about it is to compose music and play music, you really have to listen. You're always listening. And that's what you're doing in psychology too. As a therapist, I spend most of my time listening, which is somehow connected to music. Yeah. So I often like to say I'm actually with the client listening to the music of their soul, just in terms of what they express and share. So I still love what I do, although I'm down to a much smaller practice now than ever before, because I'm spending so much time with the composing and writing.
You said something that I want to ask you about as a psychologist, listening. Do we as a society listen enough?
No, not even close. Not even close.
Why?
We're distracted. We are distracted by all of the sensationalism. And I think there are advantages to capitalist culture, consumer culture, but one of the downsides is everybody's trying to sell you something. And there's a lot of, I think the other thing I like to say is that through nobody's fault, I think it's just the way it's evolved, that we live in a very extroverted, egocentric culture, which means that there's so much noise out in the world that people don't spend enough time listening. I would say one of my missions on the planet is to help people listen more, listen to each other more, and perhaps most importantly, listen to ourselves more, to really listen to what I like to call the wisdom of the heart. So, and that's why my music is not about shouting or yelling or you actually have to really listen and tune in. Hopefully it allows people to quiet their minds and listen more deeply.
Would our personal relationships be better if we really focused on listening?
Absolutely. Something we've talked about is communication. And I always like to say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should be listening twice as much as we're speaking. And relationships are built on this ability to really listen to each other. And most people also, one of the things that's powerful in psychology is very few people ever have the experience of somebody really listening to them, focusing on them as if they're the only person in the world at that moment, which you actually do really well, by the way.
Thank you.
And I love how you do that on the show. And that's exactly what our world needs more of. And it develops into what we call presence. And presence is a result of deep listening.
When we take a look, you mentioned egocentric. Our society has become so egocentric, and one of the things that we were talking about prior to going on air here was you just got back from the Grammys and the Whitney Houston tragedy. And I don't want to talk about this from a sensational standpoint because I don't think that's a good thing to focus on, but one would have to ask on the outside that she would seemingly have it all. Why do you think she got into such a tragic scenario in her life?
Oh, it's a great question, Jeff, and it's a tragic situation, and made this last Grammys, out of the 3 I've been to, by far the most moving. There's a lot of dynamics, and I certainly never saw her as a client, so it's simply speculation. But what I can see, seeing so many of the tragedies similar to this, like Michael Jackson as well, that I always like to say ego lives from the outside in. And as an egocentric culture, that means that we are looking at ourselves through other people's eyes. And the ego is mainly interested in acceptance and approval from the outside. But that's like trying to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps. It means that our self-esteem is in other people's hands. I contrast that to what I like to simply call the soul. And I don't mean the soul in any religious or spiritual context. I simply mean it as our deepest essential core of who we are, our essential self. And the essential self, or the soul, is the part of us that lives from the inside out and can feel okay no matter what's going on the outside. I always say the secret to real happiness is when your happiness is not dependent on external circumstances. And that's what happens with the ego. Ego happiness is dependent on external circumstances. You know, getting a Grammy. If my happiness was dependent on that, that would be a really dangerous place to be, not healthy. Or if it was dependent on, you know, a particular relationship, or having a certain amount of money, or people thinking I'm the top star in the world. All of those things are temporal. All those things are impermanent, and all those things will bring suffering if that's what you're investing your sense of self in. So I think what happens to a lot of these stars, to be honest, I mean, they're set up in this way. We throw all this fame and fortune and money at them, and then, you know, wonder what happens when all of a sudden, you know, they're not on top, because you can't stay on top all the time. And I think it's really hard, because they become alienated from their essential self, because they're too invested in this social self. And I think I'm sure there's other issues like addiction and other things, and all play into this, but there's no doubt that that's a dynamic that's present. Because in the realm of the ego, more is never enough. More is never enough. So there's always more money, more fame, and it leaves the person, that creates an addiction, not just to a drug, but to being accepted or approved of by the outside. You know, what people are saying in the paper about you and things like that.
Well, that might explain some of the crazy stuff that goes on with the reality shows, where people put themselves in some extreme, embarrassing situations, one would assume just for attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or that, you know, that the price of willing to demean something more essential in themselves to get a moment of what we would think of as fame, and fame for fame's sake, as opposed to something growing out of something genuine and real.
But even in day-to-day life, as a business person or a student or whatever, we're all obviously affected by the ego. How do we do a better job of turning that around, like you were talking about, just as an individual person?
Yeah, excellent question. The first thing I talk about, really try to encourage people to spend some time, you can call it meditation or prayer. My one way I like to think about it is simply solitude, having time with yourself. You know, I always like to say, how do you like the company you keep in your empty moments, when you're not on, people are not around, you're not doing things, but you're what I also like to call being time. And some people find this in gardening, but I also find meditation is one of the main things I like to teach in my practice, or what we call mindfulness, helping people feel in the moment, spending time. I actually like to say my holy trinity is creativity, nature, and spirituality. So spending time in nature can be really helpful. Having a creative outlet as well, because when you're in a creative process, there's this wonderful feeling of communion with something greater, and that confers a sense of sanity and groundedness in ways that other things don't oftentimes. And spirituality, what I mean by that is feeling connected to something greater. I don't care what you call it. It can be all kinds of things for all kinds of people, but where you feel that you are not alone in the universe, but you're not simply a creature of society too. And that some people find that in nature. Some people find it in church. Some people find it in a personal spiritual sense of connection. But I think that's really important too. So, in fact, the soul is the part of us I usually have this little diagram I draw that knows this larger life that we're part of. And I don't mean society, but this larger life in terms of nature or spirituality or the cosmos, however you might want to call it. And that can really help you put, society in its place and proper perspective.
When we look around and we see all that nature has to offer, and for that matter, we see all that we have, I often have to ask myself, are we really as grateful as we should be?
Key question. And I would say, in addition to everything else I said, practicing the art of gratefulness is perhaps the most important thing anybody can do, because it keeps us humble. It reminds us the glass is half full and not half empty. I'd like to start off with, thank you for my eyes that I can see.
Right.
Thank you for my ears that I can hear. Right. That we're missing these miracles
right.
that are occurring every moment
right.
that we're alive.
Right.
So I think gratefulness is central to that.
Yeah. When do you think our society has gotten to a point where we focus so much on the negative, whether it be, with the news of, crime, or just, why are we so wrapped up in that?
Unfortunately, it's pandering to our, one of the basic parts of human nature, which is, we call it in psychology antipathetic sympathy or sympathetic antipathy. It's like, you see a car crash, you don't want to look, but you can't help but look. Part of it, I think, is in our DNA that we, you have to look at disaster, to try to keep away from it. But it's turning that kind of almost primitive, it's a primitive response that we have as humans, and then it's being capitalized on. And I think that's a real danger, is that we have to be better than that. Right. We have to rise above that. Hopefully we'll evolve beyond that, because it's not healthy. And Einstein used to say, if you're depressed, the first thing he would suggest is stop watching the news.
Yeah.
Because there's such a gravitation towards the negative. Could you imagine if the main stories of the day were about all the positive things happening, and really with a real positive, uplifting message? I think all kinds of other things, we would build confidence in our culture and our abilities, and I think that we're still in a very primitive time of our culture. I always like to tell people, don't let all the technology fool you.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still living in a fairly primitive time in human evolution. Hopefully we'll be given the opportunity and chance to continue to evolve to a place where we can be more mature as a species on the planet. At least I certainly hope so.
I can't help but think, but sometimes you listen to all the negative things going on, but then conversely, you go out of your house, get into your car, and put some music on, and all of a sudden you feel better.
Well, and that's part of why I do music, is there's only so much we can change, or we can talk about things, but art or music are the thing. And no matter what's happened for the day, I can pick up one of my flutes and the whole day just melts away. And one of my missions is to try to put out music that helps the world be a little more sane and peaceful and healed place.
Tell me a little bit about, I've got a couple of your CDs here. Tell me a little bit about, and we're going to play a little bit of this, Gaia?
Gaia, yes.
First of all, what does Gaia mean?
Gaia is the Greek word for Earth Mother or Earth Goddess. She was considered the firstborn goddess. The name actually comes from a fairly well-known scientific, used to be a hypothesis that is now a defined theory. James Lovelock came up with what was called the Gaia hypothesis, that said the Earth is a living organism. And now there's been so much evidence to support his hypothesis, it's now known as the Gaia theory. And I was composing this during the Gulf oil spill. And the message I wanted to bring was, number one, putting my grief over the spill, but also my hope for the future. And the message is about trying to realize that we are all native earthlings. We may not be Native American or Native Australian, but we are all native earthlings. We have something in common about sharing this amazing, gorgeous planet, that we're also in it together here, and that we have to start having a more healthy, functional relationship with this, with each other and our planet and the natural resources. And so it's really kind of my tone prayers and sound poems and my plea to say, hey, we're in this together. Right. So I learned a lot of different world instruments, and I have pieces from Japan and China and Indonesia and the Middle East, and try to use music as a message of unity for the planet.
Okay. I've got about 2 minutes. Bindu? That's
Bindu,
the new one?
Just released this month, and Bindu is a Sanskrit word that means point or dot, and it's considered the moment of creation. And this means both in terms of like the Big Bang, the moment of creation of the whole universe, but also means anytime any of us are creating, anytime we have that kind of aha moment. Right. So it's a very meditative album, and where a lot of my other albums explored nature as a form of healing, this one really shares for me, I was trying to express what I often experience and find in deep meditation. And I've been a meditator and teacher meditation for close to 30 years. So I really wanted to help give people an opportunity to go within. And that's really what my music for me is about, is helping people quiet their minds, open their hearts, tune out this external crazy world a little bit, and see how many incredible resources they have inside of themselves if they'll just take a moment and listen within.
Let that personal creativity flow.
There you go. Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. You have also, speaking of flow, In the Flow. Now,
Yes, I'm very excited about this album. Was the first released by the international label Sounds True, and this was released last summer. It's the first compilation of my music, and it's called In the Flow, Music for Emotional Healing. And it's really been about, finding that creative flow. And the flow, I always like to say there is a river that flows through our heart. And to really connect to that river is to be in the flow.
fascinating. If people want to learn more about your music, the best website to go to would be?
MichaelDiMaria.com is
Okay.
probably the simplest. DEMARIA, MichaelDiMaria.com. If you also put Michael Brandt DiMaria or Michael DiMaria Music in Google, all kinds of things
All kinds
will
of good
come up.
stuff will come
Yes.
up. Awesome. Well, best of luck. Maybe the next Grammy nomination is going to be the one.
Oh, that would be amazing, Jeff. And thank you for having me. And thanks for doing this show. It's a great service to so many.
Thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to wrap up a couple of things, and then we're going to have the title cut from Gaia.
Yes, a title cut.
Okay, is going to be playing as we go to break. Dr. Michael DiMaria joining us today. By the way, you can see a lot more of our conversations with a wide range of interesting personalities online at WSRE.org/conversations. Thank you so very much for spending some time with us. I'm Jeff Weeks. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take good care of yourself, and we'll see you soon. Here's Dr. Michael DiMaria as we go to break. Go to close, I should say.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.